photography, art, drawing, and actually going online and seeing virtual performances from a lot of our folks that are with us here today. So it's interesting to see people invent and get super creative with their organizations as we are getting out of the pandemic. So excited to start seeing everybody in person. We have here today Sally Dix, Matt Hagee, Sid Jerwalker, Ty Klobasa, Blair Massa, and Brent Roski. And each of them are doing really cool things. They're being very inventive, and I'm excited for all of us to learn how they are using this time to grow and to get out of the box and think of how they can still reach amazing audiences in the region and do it with ease and still build revenue. So this is going to be fun. And I'm really, really proud that Sierra Porter, entertainment reporter with the Des Moines Register, is here today, and she's going to be our moderator. So thank you, Sierra, for being here today. I am excited to introduce the West Des Moines Chamber gurus, our experts. We have Bailey First running our show today. Thank you so much, Bailey, for helping keep our events so well groomed and just going beautifully. Kara Matheson is our Director of Workforce, and she's working on a lot of exciting new projects. Nicole Langmaid is our operations leader. Thank you, Nicole, for all that you do. And Anna Dowd is our membership director. So thank you, Anna. She's been working real hard lately. We've had a lot of great response with a lot of our recent programming. And so Anna's been super busy lately. We have a new team member joining us on Friday as well. So watch your West Des Moines newsletter for a wonderful announcement of a brand new team member starting on Friday. So with that, I'm going to send the virtual microphone to Anna Dowd, and Anna is going to recognize our amazing sponsor today, Bankers Trust. Thank you, Bankers Trust, and thank you, Anna.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks, Catherine. And as she said, thank you to our presenting sponsor for West Des Moines Edge, which is Bankers Trust. They have been longtime supporters of this program, which previously was known as our Business Roundtable. So we are so excited to have them on board for this year as our sponsor. And I don't believe Rob Reinard, who is our, usually our representative, is with us today, but still want to give them the recognition and shout out and just thank Rob and the entire team at Bankers Trust for supporting not only the West Des Moines Chamber, but the entire West Des Moines community. So thank you, Bankers Trust. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Bankers Trust. Really appreciate your support. And now I'm going to turn the virtual podium to Sierra Porter, and she's going to help moderate our amazing panelists today. So thank you, Sierra.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for giving me this opportunity. I'm super excited to be here, you guys. And I'm going to start by introducing everybody. So, of course, we have Sally Dix, who is the Executive Director of Bravo Greater Des Moines. We have Matt Hagee, who is Executive Director of the Historic Valley Junction Foundation. We have Sid Jerwalker, who is the owner of Teehee's Comedy Club. We have Ty Klobasa, who is the board president of Tall Grass Theater. We have Blair Massa, who is the Executive Director of Ballet Des Moines. And we have Brent Roski, who is the president of the Roski Agency and YourIowa.com. Hello, you guys.
Hi.
How are you? So we're going to start with Sally. And Sally, you can kick us off with talking about some of the top trends in arts and entertainment vital to West Des Moines in our region as it relates to Bravo Greater Des Moines.
Great. I'm setting my timer on my phone so I don't go over 7 minutes. I don't want to be the one that bumps everybody back. So thank you, Sierra, so much for the opportunity, and Catherine and the West Des Moines Chamber and Bankers Trust. I really am excited to be part of the conversation today. I think it's so important that we talk about arts and culture as an economic driver. It is certainly a nice to have element to our region, but I really think it's important that people understand the broader role that arts and culture play. I'm certainly grateful to West Des Moines for their continued support in Bravo, support of Bravo as an original and ongoing partner to us. And I actually think I'm going to start there with just a short overview of what Bravo is. We find that we're pretty well known, but pretty poorly understood. That's on us. It's on the list of things to take care of, but we just haven't quite gotten there yet to being better storytellers. Bravo Greater Des Moines was formed in 2004 with the primary intent of serving as a centralized grant funder to the arts, culture, and heritage organizations in our community. We are 99% funded with hotel motel tax dollars, and those funds are contributed by 17 local government partners in Greater Des Moines. So each individual community, Des Moines, West Des Moines, Clive, Windsor Heights, Urbandale, Polk City, we go around 17 communities invest in Bravo so that we can serve that function, that thing we were created to do, which was leverage all those resources on behalf of the region in ways that individual cities can't do as effectively on their own. So the two ways primarily that we execute on that mission is through our competitive grant making programs. That's one of the things we're best known for. But we also are elevating the role, the conversation about the role of arts and culture in the community. The grant making is important. Dollars are critical to support all the work that you'll hear about in a few minutes, but also making sure that people do understand the conversation about arts and culture is much bigger than a quality of life discussion. And just to give you a sense, most people may not be aware that in our region, there are more than 70 nonprofit arts, culture, and heritage organizations. We have a huge breadth and depth of organizations that we're supporting and that are bringing richness to our region. But most people don't know, first of all, that there are 70 of them, and second of all, that those combined organizations have an annual economic impact of more than $185 million. An annual economic impact from arts and culture of more than $185 million. And that does not take into account the for-profit arts and culture sector, entertainment industry, and nor does it take into consideration individual artists, which are a huge contributor to the economy and the creative economy. So there's a huge story to be told about why it's important for all of us to care about arts and culture. I hear a lot of people say, oh, I don't really like arts. It's not my thing. I'm not an artist. I didn't take an art class. That's okay, that's up to you, but it is a really critical industry and engine for our region. So it's important for everyone to be advocates for the broader role of arts and culture. While there's certainly a lot to celebrate about the role of arts and culture, and $185 million sounds like a lot of money, and it certainly is, I do have to say that was not a 2020 number. 2020 was a really tough year for the cultural sector for a variety of reasons. With the onset of COVID-19, I can tell you from data from the national data that there was no sector that was hit harder than leisure and hospitality. And that includes arts and culture venues and experiences. The sector nationally lost more than 50% of its total workforce in the first 3 months of the pandemic, and it's not going to come back very quickly. We're slightly better than that, but it's going to take a while to come back. Nationally, projected more than $15 billion in losses to the sector. In Iowa, we're talking about a $40 million financial impact, plus or minus, depending on when you're collecting your data. And I'll say here in Central Iowa, 9 organizations bear $11 million of that loss. So in Greater Des Moines, the organizations that Bravo support carry 25% of the state's losses in arts and culture through 2020. So we are very excited to be turning the page, hopefully, and starting to get back to live programming and live audiences. And I do have to say it's not all bad. One of the things that has come out of 2020 is intense resilience and creativity. I'm so wildly impressed by the work that our cultural organizations have been able to do, and would love to give some examples, but just in the spirit of moving through the remarks today, please know that these organizations did not go dark. Very, very few organizations did nothing over the last year. What they had to do was do it differently, and they had to do it differently in every way, just like every other business. But just because you haven't been able to attend a live performance or see live music doesn't mean they weren't working behind the scenes to provide incredible, intense connections and cultural experiences. So what do I see coming as a trend? I have to say, I think that some of these pivots are going to stay. I do think that there's going to be more virtual than there was. So I think many of the organizations are going to continue to professionalize and continue to adapt. and still offer those virtual offerings. There's a huge advantage to being able to put a concert online. Let's use Heartland Youth Choir as an example, to put that youth concert online, because then grandparents that live in Arizona can listen in a way that they would never be able to participate and engage. So there are advantages. Certain older audiences may be aging out of attending programming in person, but would still keep their subscription if they knew they could log in and get the concert virtually. There are some advantages to this, and I think the virtual to a certain element is here to stay. I will say though, one of the best parts about arts and culture is the community that's created by experiencing it together. So I do think this is going to be one of those things where the swing is going to be really hard back to in-person as soon as we can. And I'm excited about some of the things that I know are coming, and some of which I know you'll hear from our participants here today. Examples, we've seen tremendous collaboration. There's, like I said, a lot to celebrate with the bad news. Tremendous collaboration, tremendous intersectionality, arts and culture working with organizations that are not traditionally in the arts and culture sector. And we've seen an exceptional amount of fluidity. Organizations that were always doing things this way and now are realizing we can do them this way and we can do them faster. We can learn and fail and try and experiment in ways that maybe felt uncomfortable at the beginning of 2020, but now it's like, this is just the way it goes. So that's my 7 minutes. I am going to wrap up today just with a final reminder to everyone on this call to please advocate for arts, culture, and heritage as priority community pillars. There is nothing that is going to get our economic engine started faster than live music, concerts, performances, programming, all of the things that happen with arts and culture. They will bring people to your communities. They will get people out. They will get people spending money in the restaurants and staying overnight in hotels. And it's really important that we're all advocates for that. Again, not only because we're all dying to see live music and live performance, but because that's the economic engine that we need. That's what we have to be working together to drive. So thank you again for the opportunity to participate today. Thank you to West Des Moines for everybody's tremendous support. We appreciate the community support for Bravo, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the rest of the panel.
Sally, that was amazing. I think you hit the nail right on the head, and you definitely kicked us off on a good start. And I agree with you on everything you said with the financial impact, and venue owners and musicians and everybody in arts and entertainment has had to find ways to be creative to reach their audiences, but there's still that big financial impact, and it is going to take us a while to kind of get back to a safe zone. So I'm gonna turn it over to Matt Hagee, and I want you to discuss, in what areas in your particular industry that you guys still need support in order to get yourself back in a space where you're financially better off.
Well, that's the $10 million question. Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Hagee. I'm the executive director of the Historic Valley Junction Foundation over here on 5th Street in West Des Moines. I'm coming to you live today from our second floor conference room, looking out at the street where our farmers market opens 1 week from Thursday on time this year, May 6th. So we'll be back on the street in some capacity. For us as the Historic Valley Junction Foundation, our role is to provide free public community entertainment. Some of our events have been on the street in our neighborhood for 40 years. So we're part of summertime for a lot of our audience here. And so last year during the pandemic, we basically shut down all of live performance on the street. We felt that we had a responsibility to support public safety, and while not much was known about the coronavirus situation, we didn't feel comfortable holding, obviously, audiences together in a large space outdoors. We're thrilled with the pace of vaccinations. I mean, I have to say, if there were one thing that I would give as advice to folks in terms of how to get folks back into the type of thing we're talking today, get your vaccination. The vaccinations are available widely now. You can get one from Polk County Public Health without having to wait a long period of time for an appointment. We encourage that because it's the best way we can be sure that the broadest cross-section of our community will feel safe and comfortable returning to large public events. So that's a step that we can all take. Here in Valley Junction, we have our Music in the Junction concert series that reopens June 3rd. We've delayed the opening of that a month again, just to let progress continue on getting people ready to be back outdoors and at large events. But what's been the transformation here over the course of the last year is really a lot of frankly, a lot of patience and you know, a lot of forgiveness and a lot of understanding. And we just are so overwhelmed with gratitude for how the community has supported us through this time. Valley Junction books close to 30 live performance acts over the course of the year. And you know, our performers through a lot of uncertainty and what the scheduling was going to be like, and everything really stood with us. I think there's a lot of loyalty to our event, which is very positive. But frankly, the degree to which everybody has let us change things 1 month at a time and on the fly has really been uplifting. And it speaks to the fact that folks have recognized how much disruption there's been. Going forward, I think it's important to continue to be patient with your local arts organizations. We're sending the message out about, especially in food and beverage too, the fact that a lot of organizations haven't had a chance to fully staff back up yet in this phase of the pandemic. You know, crowds are returning, traffic is returning as people feel comfortable going out. But I think just asking continued patience for local organizations and arts organizations that have really substantially changed programming. It takes a little while to bring everything back out onto the street. So we are trying to return at a full scale, but it's an interesting challenge because, you know, after you stop the bus for a year, getting it going again, it needs a little bit of work sometimes. So thankfully, patrons and our guests have understood that. Here in Valley Junction, we have some cool stuff going on. One of the things that I like to point out is we have a really great outdoor exhibition space called the Olson Larson Guild that's at 4th and Maple. That's behind me. They have a show up right now that's by an artist named Laura Trapnisek that is called Cabinet of Curiosity that runs through May. But if you're ever over here, make sure you go by and check out that Olson Larson Guild space, it's called. We've got some really great artists that show up. We have a new public art exhibition. The West Des Moines Public Arts Advisory Commission has funded a new public art piece that's going to be going in the public walkway in the 200 block of our neighborhood. That's right north of the Memory Lane Antique Store that we're going to be unveiling in June. So I'm going to be a little bit cryptic about that piece until you get to see the unveiling that they're planning on doing. And another 40-year tradition, the Valley Junction Arts Festival returns to the street June 13th, Sunday, June 13th from 10 to 4. So we have some live entertainment we're booking for that and different things. So we're lucky, we're outdoors. Our venue is the public street, so that gives us plenty of room to spread out, and that's made our challenge a little bit different than other folks. But back on the street with all of our event details at valleyjunction.com for folks who are interested. And I suppose I'll stop there. Maybe we'll leave some time for others.
Awesome. Does anybody else would like to chime in before we move on to Sid? Well, thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate that. And I, like you said, I hear what you're saying with patience, and I see, you know, patrons actually being very patient with holding on to their tickets for certain events and, you know, or donating the money to certain organizations and foundations. So I think West Des Moines and Iowa in general are all on board with being patient with each other until we can get back into a better space. So we're going to move on to Sid Jewalker, who is the owner of Teehee's Comedy Club. So Sid, can you talk about how has COVID helped you be innovative with being able to host performances for comedy lovers in Iowa?
Sounds great. There's a comedy term called getting the light. So Moses, I like you, you're my guy. If I'm done talking or I'm getting close to 7 minutes, just use your phone and wave frantically, and then I'll know I'm done talking. So I opened up Teehee's Comedy Club, luckily enough, in January 1, 2020. Yes, 28 days before the world ended. So to answer the question on what creative ways and things have I done to keep a comedy club alive, the simple answer was I had no choice. We don't have a sign on the building because that was used for an April lease payment. But the point of it is, in desperate times, true innovation breeds. And when we first opened, I mean, Teehee's Comedy Club was built to be an independent comedy club for the simple reason that I myself as a comedian realized that Des Moines needed a thriving comedy scene, and we had amazing comedians. The only problem is we didn't have a stage for them to perform on. even though the Funny Bone is a great comedy club, you should support it. It is for national touring comedians, and people in Des Moines who got to a certain level of comedy ended up moving to comedy centers like Denver and Chicago. And the only way to create a thriving comedy scene is to have good comedians have a place to perform and get better at what they do. So with that intent, we created a comedy club, and then a pandemic kind of threw us a curveball, because to make comedians better, which was our business plan, we funded the comedy shows with the event rentals, the corporate stuff, the things that happened between Monday through Friday morning that you didn't see, so that we could pay comedians to be on our stage, tell jokes, and wouldn't have to like worry about paying bills with just independent comedy. Of course, corporate rentals went away because none of y'all were going to work, all sitting there in your pajamas at home, logging in on your computers. But of course, I mean, we had to adjust because nobody was having Christmas parties, because we opened up in December for that purpose. Nobody was having afternoon workshops. Nobody was doing things where things were, and people, of course, were not coming to shows. So we had to change the way we thought of things. And the first thing that came to mind when people think about how you're going to pivot from a comedy club and a live entertainment venue was, well, why don't you just do comedy online? Zoom, stream it. Here's a little tidbit. If you've ever been a comedian or yelled into a microphone to a room when nobody showed up and nobody laughed back at you, you understand what a soulless experience that is. That is every time you do comedy on Zoom. Nobody unmutes their microphone. Most people turn their video off, and you're just yelling into your own comedy screen to no feedback. So I didn't want to do that to comedians. So other places had to, we never did. We decided we're going to keep the integrity of local comedy, because these comedians weren't just doing a job. They needed that help to fund and sort of create themselves, their persona, their things, their jokes, to become good comedians in Des Moines. So what we started to do was focus on building the community around us instead of trying to just do comedy for the sake of comedy. So when we first shut down, we focused more on our classes and developing comedians in Des Moines. Instead of trying to figure out shows, bringing in people to tell jokes to people who weren't showing up, we decided to focus that time, even though it didn't pay the bills, to breed and make comedians better, so that when we did open up, these are people that supported organizations. Their friends showed up to see them perform for the first time on their stage. And the quality of what they were doing was great, because they had all this time during shutdown. Instead of forcing them to yell jokes into a blank screen, focus on writing. We did writing workshops, we did classes. We made situations around places where people could come together in socially distant ways and enjoy comedy in a non-pressure show situation. We also opened our doors to the community. Most of the co-working spaces shut down. And before we shut down, without any warning, we had kegs of beer tapped, which we were all going to waste because we didn't know if we were going to open. So we said, you know what, I'm not going to dump it down the drain. You want a free Wi-Fi 6 feet away from another table? I want to drink beer all day because the company doesn't care where you're at. Come on in. What we did, though, is every 3 hours when they needed a little walk-around break, a comedian got up on stage and told 5 minutes of jokes, which they didn't expect and love. So we got comedians to get a captive audience. The community liked a place where they could just drink beer and work because they got tired of sitting at home. We made sure it was safe for everyone. We performed social distancing. Even our safety protocols were even more stringent than the state required us to. People felt comfortable coming to shows, telling their friends. And so we made that our first priority. We also did things that brought a unique perspective and POV to Des Moines. So for example, people say, how come this club in Chicago, Des Moines survived in less than 3 months of being open when clubs in Chicago couldn't make it? And Chicago has a more vibrant and thriving comedy scene. It's because we did shows that brought a unique POV to Des Moines and people came to listen to. So we are one of the, Chicago right now doesn't have an all Black lineup. We do. Chicago doesn't have an all women showcase. We do monthly. On 4th of July, we did a comedy called ICE, Immigrant Comedy Experience, where everyone in the lineup was a first generation immigrant to the United States of America. What better way to celebrate 4th of July? Things like that, that people felt like, you know what? These idiots are doing something that's different. Let's go check it out. We also taught people how to produce their own shows. And that never happens anywhere else in the country, because that is basically training your competition. We didn't see it that way. We let them, we advertised their shows. We wanted them to do shows all around us. We didn't care, because we knew if we were going to go dark, these people could produce their own shows, whether they want to do it on Zoom or in coffee shops. We gave them the tools necessary to succeed. And in turn, their loyalty and support for our club has kept us open when people weren't coming out. It was actually the comedy scene that kept us open and through the pandemic. Some of the other things, and I'm getting close to time, Moses, I hope you're looking at your clock, buddy. We started to lean into the fact that we do have a pandemic going on. We're not going to ignore it. We roasted COVID as part of a show. A comedian dressed up as COVID. We even had a person be Kim Reynolds and roast COVID. It was horrible. It was amazing. We have stupid videos on our Facebook page that talks about our social distancing practices, which was serious, but we also knew that we're a comedy club and we're going to joke about it, but we're going to be serious about things. But most importantly, people ask how you can help. One, butts and seats. That's the only way you can keep live entertainment and culture going in Des Moines. And more importantly, people always ask like, hey, what about money and stuff like that? I'll be honest with you, Teehee's Comedy Club would not be open today if it weren't for the grants that we received from the arts and cultural grants and funding sources. And Sally, thank you for what you do for nonprofits and things like that. It's one of those things where there were opportunities that we took part of with the federal and the state government and things that kept us open. There's another SBA grant that's out now that we're going to take advantage of to stay open. But at the end of the day, it's the people who supported us that kept us open. And that's where we started to realize that these are the people we cater to, not comedy in general or the city of Des Moines. It's the individuals that come out and fill the seats and like comedy. So companies don't have to write checks, but the biggest way that you can help independent things, Moses, I'm past 7, buddy. Is our advertising dollars have been decimated, obviously, because we've had other things to do with our money. So if there's opportunities with media to get our help we need, so once things open up to get butts and seats, that would be a very good way to help arts and cultural organizations, because we really don't have marketing and advertising budgets right now. Independent ones don't. So thanks, that's my time.
Thank you so much, Sid. You were freaking awesome. And what really stood out to me was that, you talked about the inclusion and diversity that Teehee's Comedy Club is not only bringing to West Des Moines, but just to Iowa in general, dedicated to women, Black people, immigrants, and just making everybody feel included. And I think that's really the heart of West Des Moines. And so we're going to move on to Ty Fablasa, who's the board president of Tallgrass Theater. And Ty, if you can talk about what are some of the largest and most impactful changes that you see happening to theater as we go forward due to COVID?
Sure thing. And good afternoon, all. My name is Ty Fablasa. I'm the current board president for Tallgrass Theater Company based out of West Des Moines. The Tallgrass organization, for those not familiar, has been operating since 2002 within our community. And we've greatly grown over the years with providing live theatrical performances, children's educational workshops, and many other alternative forms of programming. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of the theater company since 2014 and have had the opportunity to also be involved with other theater companies within the Des Moines area since I moved down here after college. With us going, what is it now, almost over 13 months into a global pandemic, theater organizations, as well as many other arts organizations, continue to be shuttered to in-person events, programming opportunities, until our lives and communities begin to normalize again going forward. Being shuttered is still due to, so much of our reliance on large gatherings of cast, crew, and audience members to participate in our offerings and efforts, and that we're not able to do the work that we do without them, and it isn't the same without having their presence. As much as I'd like to say it's a flip of a switch for us to be at full capacity again tomorrow, the next day, or even the day after that with the ramp up of vaccines, we all know it's going to take time to continue building back up and to be at that full presence of what we once were, as other presenters have continued to allude to before me in this conversation today. At the start of the pandemic, we initially came to a grinding halt for all of our programming, just as we attempted to digest what was happening around us and just figure out what it actually meant to our daily operations. As we begin to understand and then shift our focus to what was happening and pick up our desire and willingness for so many companies and organizations to look to alternative means of continuing to producing, even not in person, but looking to virtual options or social media to continue elevate their products and offerings. While our doors being shuttered is not ideal, this has been a great learning opportunity for many as we've had to think about those different ways to scale back, adjust our efforts, continue adapting, look for how we keep operations running, and provide new ways to entertain and entice the love of arts. With so many being fatigued from virtual interactions and meetings, many companies still work tirelessly to find virtual means to engage audiences and provide those with the love of arts a continued outlet that they should still be involved with. I applaud all of those that have taken up that adventure and worked during this pandemic to keep their doors virtually open, because it hasn't been easy. It's been difficult. And so many of us had to have learned so quickly how to grow those skills to adapt and make that work, because it's not something we were specifically used to previously. Thankfully, as we progress into a safer environment, we see organizations starting to work towards those in-person interactions again. Looking towards the future for arts, Tallgrass, and others, it will, as I've said, it will still take time for us to be at capacity. But with what we've all endured, these new ways of programming and safety for our patrons will help us continue evolving into the future in efforts to further elevate our community offerings and partnerships. Knowing that this effort will take time, we're not able to do it alone. It'll take all of our organizations to continue pushing together with the community support. Many of our revenue streams to keep our doors open and the lights on have been greatly impacted and altered by this pandemic. And there's been a lot of struggle to keep it, just the wheels on the bus, to say, over the last 13 months. And I'd be saddened to hear of any of our many local theater companies not making it through this. While the support can rely on the need for funding to grow again, as that's been greatly reduced this past year, there's also people itching to get back to normalcy and volunteer to help out all of the organizations across the community and our continued efforts. We're seeing people willing to do that, find the capacity to help out on social media or figure out ways to volunteer virtually so that they still have an impact and continue helping our overall missions. Remembering with this last year, the pandemic, arts organization, including our own, have been impacted. For example, Tallgrass, in March of 2020, we canceled our last production of the season, like many others, due to the unknown surrounding us at the time. And we were also uniquely faced with a need that we had to move out of our home that we had been in for the last 13 years on an escalated timeline due to the uncertainties of everything happening with COVID, and attempting to figure out how we mobilize our volunteer base safely in an environment to put all of our equipment into storage while we work to figure out what was next was kind of eye-opening. And just from our internal perspective, it's just that the support is there when it's needed. And that's what's helped get us through this time, is that continued support. Speaking for Tallgrass and our organization for being DART so long now, we've done virtual offerings for some of our children's stuff throughout this time and social media. And with our moving out of our previous home and looking to what's next during this time of COVID, we're excited that during the next several months, we're continuing to work to build out our new home at 2019 Grand Avenue within West Des Moines, so that we can open our doors again once it's safe to do so in our new space. And this new location is not only for Tallgrass to grow as our theater company in our program and under our mission, but it's also our internal vision to create this new space within West Des Moines as a shared arts venue for others. So it's a place for other performances or gallery space for your own works of arts, that we want to make sure that we're providing that opportunity for creating those partnerships and providing that inclusive location. We have more information on this on our site, and we'll have more information in the coming months as construction is likely kicking off here at the start of May. The other highlight looking towards the future is that, with the weather turning nice, many theater organizations, including Tallgrass, are working on outdoor programming this summer. Hopefully, if Iowa starts pulling itself together, as we've noticed it hasn't been the last few weeks with potential snow happening upon us again here, But these in-person interactions with over 100 people sitting close in an enclosed space is still tough, but these outdoor adventures will allow us to continue on another path for our communities to re-engage all of those that have been sheltered at home with us during this time as well. I hope everyone that's on this call today or potentially listening on later will look to see what's available with theater, in Valley Junction, farmers markets that are starting again, all of those outdoor activities that provide a safer space for people to start gathering again. I encourage everyone to support all forms of arts and our amazing organizations across the metro now more than ever. In my opinion, arts are ever needed in our lives, and now that thought is at the top of our mind more than ever, as we still have the need to remain sheltered for such a period that it's still not safe to potentially start gathering. I look for Tallgrass and so many other organizations to start stepping back into the light and having that much needed support of the community so that we can continue enduring as we build back up. I just want to thank everyone for allowing me to talk today, and for all the other members of the arts communities, the opportunity to share some of our thoughts and how we've handled this past year and how we're looking for the future. I personally rely on theater as a creative outlet, and the interaction with so many like-minded individuals that love theater as well, that we're missing our artistic families. We're missing those spaces and the ability to create. And there's so many people out there that cannot wait to dive back in. And that's really what's going to drive us back into what this last year has brought us and look towards a brighter future ahead.
Absolutely, well said, Ty. And I know the Des Moines Community Playhouse is also doing the same thing with outdoor performances, and everybody's getting creative. Blair Mass is going to speak, and I know with Ballet Des Moines, they have their training program coming up, and I know that you guys are also doing your spring tour, which I'm sure is going to be freaking amazing. It's going to be outside, and it's going to include the whole entire community. So if you also, Blair, can add on to what Ty said about how the industry is changing for the future due to this pandemic.
Sure. And I actually, the problem with being on such a wonderful lineup of panelists is that I'm not sure I have an enormous amount to add that hasn't been said, but what I do have is some pretty slides to look at. So you can all look at the slides while I probably repeat things that have already been said. But in case anybody isn't familiar, Ballet Des Moines is Iowa's resident professional ballet company. We're located here in Valley Junction in West Des Moines. We think that dance is a uniquely inclusive and accessible art form. It transcends language and age and cultural barriers. And we think that it really ignites inspiration and human connection and brings value to our community. In a normal season, we engage tens of thousands of Iowans through performances, but also through free performances and programs for students. We go to public schools, we have regional tours, and recently we've been exploring broadcast and digital streaming. If you could go to the next slide for me, Bailey. I'm gonna absolutely just reiterate some things that Sally said at the beginning of this conversation, and we won't dwell for long on it, but the impact of the arts really is deep and broad. They not only drive economic growth, as Sally was lending some really interesting statistics that are Iowa specific that I don't have. These are US wide that are in front of you. But the arts improve student outcomes, they increase tourism, they make people happier about where they live. The metrics are truly incredible. If you ever feel like, kind of going in a Google black hole and learning about the impact of arts and arts education, it's just incredible how it can change lives. And all of my friends and peers here have spoken about all of these impacts, but it bears repeating. And I think that these statistics are powerful. These are from a recent Americans for the Arts survey and report. So I think it's obvious from all of that and from what you've heard today that the arts are going to play a vital role in our recovery and future vitality, both as a city and as a region. But as you all probably already know, the arts are woefully underfunded, especially here in the US. I grew up in Europe and often compare our situation to those of my peers and friends across the pond. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was on a consortium call with dance leaders from across the world, and the lack of a backbone of arts funding in this country is stark when you compare it to especially European and Asian arts industries. And I think that in moments like a global pandemic, that shaky territory, that arts institutions rely often on an unreliable combination of philanthropic giving and earned revenue through ticket sales primarily to survive. When those things become uncertain or unstable, it's really difficult to find the bottom. We're very, very lucky, obviously, to have funders in our community like Bravo and corporations like Bankers Trust in West Des Moines and entities that truly value the arts. But it's not necessarily, as Sally mentioned also, it's not necessarily a wide-held belief that this type of investment can truly pay off in many ways other than just a nice to have. So with theaters essentially being dark for over a year at this point, I think everybody knows that many arts institutions have really struggled, but it has led to just the most incredible period of innovation and creativity and collaboration that I've ever witnessed as an arts professional. Bailey, I think on my next slide, I can actually remember what it said, but it has some examples of just ways that I've witnessed that creativity coming to life. So for Ballet Des Moines, that meant that we redefined our work entirely after canceling a season's worth of in-person performances. And so instead of that normal production season, we really prioritized reaching out to peers and collaborators, building networks, and just forging new partnerships. We have an incredible local arts community here, as evidenced by this call, and I was thrilled to reach out to people that I maybe hadn't even met in person. I'm still new to town. So really, that was an incredible experience and one of my biggest takeaways from this last year and a half. But we worked with our partners, our new partners mostly, to create a virtual season, which was absolutely new territory for Ballet Des Moines. Creating art for the screen, as has been mentioned a few minutes ago, is completely different. I liked your soulless comment, Sid. It's not dissimilar for dancers who are looking for contact and some kind of give and take with an audience. They really haven't had that since December of 2019. So we had some learning curves, but we were in it together with a ton of partners from across the region, musicians and other professionals that we really gathered together to try and raise the tide. And the next slide, you'll see just a list of some of the people that we were able to forge relationships with during the last year. And I truly believe that this is my biggest takeaway from what we've learned during a pandemic, what's really important. I have two big takeaways, just setting the stage for one more, but I think that having the opportunity to really lift others up at the same time as you're forging and carving a path forward, trying to reinvent yourself and figure out how it is that you're going to survive, but not doing that in isolation. I think that it's really been the success that we've had for the last year. And also it's so clearly an investment for the future of our industry, and not only just for Ballet Des Moines, but for the entire arts industry and creative community here in Des Moines and Iowa. So that is certainly the lesson that I learned, that was absolutely worth any time that you spend reaching out and connecting and sharing. Again, we're very lucky in this community to have so many networking opportunities within the nonprofit and arts industries. And I was very, very grateful for those, especially being new. So finally, the other takeaway that I wanted to mention as a silver lining of the past year was the opportunity to break away from the status quo and ensure that our operations truly met our mission and vision and values moving forward. I think that none of us would have chosen to take a complete break in programming for any period of time, but having one forced upon you does give you a moment's pause to really self-assess. And we were already, Ballet Des Moines was already in the process of a strategic planning. We had some consultants on board and we were halfway through the process when the pandemic hit. So we elongated the process a little, continued shifting our goals and our timelines based on what was available and what we were able to do. But I feel really good about how we were able to truly dive all the way in to those conversations because we had the time and space to do it. And now moving forward with the strategic scorecard and all of these deepened community relationships, we're able to ensure that our programming, is as committed as we are to equity and education and excellence. So that is definitely another piece that I think we sometimes don't prioritize in normal times. that I certainly learned that the investment pays off and is absolutely worth doing, even if it is a little scary to break away from what you've usually done from the status quo. So looking forward, I'm again inspired by all the people on this call, by the creativity I've seen in this community. I think there's just been an incredible swath of different options that have been on the table for your different levels of comfort. I love the idea of drinking beer in a comedy club. I don't know why I didn't know about that while I work from home, but I just encourage everyone on the call to realize that, you know, running reduced capacity events puts enormous pressure on funding sources other than ticket revenue. You know, if you had a tight budget, which most arts companies do for a normal theater performance, then adding in the fact that you can only fill 30% of the seats really changes the metrics and puts increased pressure on those other funding sources. And I know that you've all heard it and hopefully been inspired by my friends here to support your local arts groups in any way that you can, but also to be understanding that we're probably not returning to normal as quickly as everybody would like. I'm so thrilled that we're on the, you know, at the cusp of more vaccinations and turning the corner of the pandemic. But at the same time, it's going to take years for arts funding and employment to resume to its pre-pandemic levels. And so patience, gratitude, and just finding ways to participate maybe that aren't the ways you would have before, I think is really important. So I encourage everyone to attend performances whenever and however you feel comfortable. As somebody mentioned, we're performing outside this weekend. We're really excited that the weather, cross your fingers, looks like it's going to be lovely. We're so excited to gather again, the community together and have a shared experience. It has been a really long time that we've all been isolated. And so I encourage everyone to support, whether that means buying tickets, whether it means buying tickets now for performances in the fall. I think that the uncertainty, the timeline has been really hard for a lot of arts institutions. So if you can buy a ticket now for next season, do it. If you can sponsor, if you can donate, if you can volunteer, just do it. But I want to say thank you to everybody for the opportunity to talk. And it's been a privilege listening to everybody else on the call. So thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Blair. I really appreciate that. And last off, finally, but not least, Brent Roski, who is the president of the Roski Agency in your Iowa. I know you were working on a project, Winter Set, a series, and you had a lot of helping hands. So can you, finish us off and talk about what you have learned most that you could share with your audience throughout this experience of working with other people and collaborating and obviously having a crew? Tell me how that was for you during the pandemic.
When things slowed down, I kept coming back to a quote from Kurt Vonnegut when he was a young boy, 15 years old. An adult told him that you can't always be concerned about money when you do things, that it's okay in life to do things because you're passionate about them, because you enjoy doing them. And for me, when things shut down, I started focusing on things that I was interested in, but hadn't necessarily jumped into fully. One of those things, because a lot of what I do is traditional production, commercials. I was a creative director at NBC Universal for 10 years and directed literally hundreds of commercials and TV specials. When that business slowed down, I looked into and launched youriowa.com. I reached out to local businesses and shout out to the chamber here. Catherine and the West Des Moines Chamber are just a fantastic, positive group of individuals. We're helpful in getting other businesses to be on that program. And literally Monday through Friday at 7 a.m., we would literally talk about businesses, or we'd talk about different things people had going on, as just a simple way of creating a community, not only to share ideas, but just to interact, when we're not talking with masks on, etc. And really about finding joy and passion in what we're doing. And Bailey, if you want to run that clip. So this is something we filmed just last weekend, just a couple days ago. And one of the things I tell people about Iowa is, at least for me, I was 17 years in Los Angeles, and you can just go ahead and push play, Bailey, whenever you like. What I tell people about Iowa is that Iowa's made a lot of my dreams come true. Not only did my wife and I start a family here, but productions like what you're going to see here, and it looks like it's streaming, but the still frames work too. So this was filmed Saturday. That's a drone shot. It's a 3-minute drone shot. The Polk County Conservation Board was great, and that's Easter Lake, the rangers over there at Easter Lake. We literally shut down the boat ramp in this entire peninsula to do a CSI style shoot. And because of our passion for it, and because of relationships that go back 2 decades, a very key individual flew in to actually be with us for the filming, and that was Darren Sarafian. Darren directed 16 episodes of CSI. He directed 22 episodes of House, and he was there with us filming. And what this shows is, and you just get an idea here of all the different people on the screen. I mean, we had 20 different actors, lines, and the people in the boat, and you can't quite see them, but this drone shot carries from the parking lot all the way to the back of the peninsula, and we had a search team and all this sort of things. And when you look at that on paper, and when you have a production meeting about how to do something like this in traditional production worlds, Los Angeles, New York, this would be an incredibly expensive day. I shut down 3 blocks of Chinatown once directing for a commercial for Uniball pens, and that was 80 grand just to lock down that part of the street. It was like a Tuesday from 6 a.m. to 7. Like it was not a good time, and it was still incredibly expensive. And this is just one example of things that you're, with some relationships and talking to folks, what you can get done. We had a, off-duty police officer there helping us, and his smile, because movies and TV had always been something from a distance for him, he really ignited all of us. Again, my own, excitement and passion for making film and television. But back into, a lot of what I do here in Iowa is traditional advertising. The RoskiAgency.com has got examples of some of our recent work. Just did a piece. I saw Ballet Des Moines did a piece there at the Botanical Gardens. We did a drone film at the Botanical Gardens. After living in Los Angeles for 20 years, I have to go see the palm trees quite a bit at the Botanical Gardens. I'm there quite a bit, actually. So just filmed a drone film there. Just did Cresco Theater and Opera House is up in the northeast part of the state. And there was not a big budget there, but I am a huge supporter of live theater, and especially historic theater. So I went up there and filmed couple different shoots. We did a drone shoot and then inside, and you can watch both of those at the RoskiAgency.com. But in whatever ways that I could to try to help, either get the word out or do small productions for different artists, I think that's incredibly important. And for a year, every business has had to figure out how they're going to adjust, how they're going to keep money coming in, and certainly the arts are no different. But a point that people miss, I think, in Iowa is the importance of art, because so often art is the reason why people do what they do. It's why they do their 40 or 60 hour a week work. And the highlight of their week, their month, is to go to a performance at Teehees. It's to go to a performance at Tallgrass or Ballet Des Moines. And that's the highlight. That's why they do what they do. It's not simply just to put a roof over their heads or food on the table. So I tell people in Los Angeles, when I first considered moving here full time about 7 years ago, I told them then, I said, I think Iowa could make some of my dreams come true. I host a show on local television here called Roski on Politics that comes up during the political season. I've had candidates to the House. I've been fortunate enough to run one of the presidential campaigns here. And so, in my few minutes here, I'll just say, if you're watching this from out of state and you're thinking about, as an artist, making a choice, your rental in Los Angeles could be paying for a mortgage here. If you're thinking about buying real estate, instead of having a 1-bedroom bathroom apartment, you'll probably have 3 bathrooms and a big old garage. So I always advocate for, if you were getting like I was into your early 40s and thinking about a place where you could really put down roots. I'm just a huge fan of West Des Moines. It's you got Trader Joe's, you got Whole Foods, beautiful parks. And again, the West Des Moines Chamber of Commerce, if you're new here, join and just get involved. So thanks to the Chamber. Thank you to Ms. Porter for being the panelist host today. And that's all I got.
Thank you so much. That was so funny, because I was not thinking about moving to Iowa at all, and I didn't even know Des Moines existed. So it's funny that you mentioned that. But anyway, I want to thank everybody so much for joining this panel, and just you guys dropped so many gems, and you guys really know what you're talking about within your fields. And I'm just so delighted to be here, and I'm happy to hear from each and every one of you. As an entertainment reporter, I cross paths with each and every one of you in some shape, form, or fashion. And I've even had to shake up my whole plan when COVID hit. So I'm gonna pass it on to Catherine and let her sign us out. And it doesn't look like we have any questions, so I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much, Sierra. You were amazing. Thank you so much for helping to guide our conversation today. And everybody, everything that you're doing, all of these arts organizations that are represented here are doing amazing things. And I do ask you to attend, volunteer, donate. I mean, you heard some amazing stories, and all of them need your time, your talent, your attention. And we can't wait to see our arts family. I know that was mentioned. And so thank you to everybody. You know, Sally, it was so incredible. $40 million loss in Iowa, you know, a huge impact. So we need to bring our arts organizations back. You know what that does? That helps build a strong city, that helps bring that tourism back to our city. And get vaccinated. Thank you for saying that. That is a huge point. Get vaccinated. And I know we're all trying to work in that effort. And so just thank you. We do miss our artistic families. The West Des Moines Chamber has given you guys a lot of love. We are taping this, and so this will be accessible for folks to watch time and time again, because all of your stories are really, really compelling. And we want to feed our arts souls, right? I mean, arts feeds our soul, and we need that right now, especially. So thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody. We're looking forward to seeing you again very soon. So be well and stay safe. Thank you, West Des Moines Chamber family. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye. Have a good one.